America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. We are in the midst of election season and it has gotten hot, and it is good because we have more candidates here. We are honored to have with us today. We have with us running for registrar Juan Rivera, and running for the assembly people we have Thomas Giblin, and we have Assemblywoman Britnee Timberlake. So we have two assembly people running for re-election, and we have Juan Rivera in a race for county register. So all running together, all running on the same line. Tell the audience something about yourself and why you want to be either elected or re-elected to your current position. So we would start off with you, Juan Rivera. Why are you running for county register?
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's my first time here. I'm excited to be here. I am running for Essex County Register for reasons. Well, over the last 20 years, I've dedicated my life to public service. So when the opportunity presented itself, and the current register, Dana Roan, did not seek re-election, I saw it to be a great opportunity to run and to continue to serve my community.
And what are some of the things that you would do as county register?
Well, that's interesting. The county register, it's not like the legislative offices. So one of the things that I'm looking to do from the information I've gathered being on the campaign trail was more accessibility to the records that people have in the registrar's office. For example, mortgage and deeds. One of the challenges that people have had is that there's no access online for that. So that's something that I would like to look into. Obviously, there's a cost for everything, so it's something that we would definitely start from the beginning to see what the cost and if it's cost effective to do that.
So you're telling me that in 2016, I can't go online for information about mortgages and deeds?
Right.
Like, don't they have like Zillow and all these other things that already do something like? So you're saying we're that far behind?
If I needed my records, there would have to be a way where I can pay the fee online. Somehow they have the software where you can pay your water bill online and they charge you a fee, something like that. But those are the things that I've gotten back from the residents, that they want more accessibility to those records.
Okay, so your main thing is, look, we have all these records. You, as voters, need to be able to assess them far more easily.
Yes.
And that is something that you would do if you were elected to county registrar.
Yes.
And so we have two other people here who are running. Tell us something about yourself and tell us why you should be, well, in case of the assembly people, re-elected.
Okay, so I'm sitting here with my partner running for Assemblyman Thomas P. Giblin, and we should be re-elected because we have an actual proven record of service. That we're not just talking about, what should happen. A good leader has to have three things: identify the issues, come up with the solutions, and then have the competency to execute it. And Assemblyman Giblin and I have put forth excellent legislation, and Assemblyman Giblin is a mentor of mine. Long before I even got to the assembly to fill the seat of the great Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, he was in the assembly as well doing legislation for working people and families. But, most recently we just did $15 an hour minimum wage.
What, the $15 an hour minimum wage? That was legislation that both of you sponsored?
That was legislation which I was a prime sponsor of, and I was able to move it through and strategize with the help of Assemblyman Thomas P. Giblin, who I'm pretty sure was also on the legislation.
That's true.
All right, so I'm sure a lot of people who are working are going to appreciate that in terms of the $15 minimum wage. I'm a teacher. I work with kids, and they're always talking about what that minimum wage is and going to be. So they have both of you to thank for that.
Yes.
All right, cool. So are there other things that are really important to you that you will either want to talk about, things that you've done or things that you will do if you are reelected?
Assemblyman?
Well, first of all, I just want to introduce myself to the listeners. My name is Thomas P. Giblin. I was raised in Newark, New Jersey. I've spent my entire life here in Essex County. I've had the opportunity to serve in public service for a number of years in different capacities. I was an Essex County freeholder for 10 years. I was the Essex County surrogate for 4 years. And I'm now in my 14th year in the New Jersey General Assembly. My district includes Montclair, East Orange, and Clifton. It's a very diverse district. There's approximately 225,000 people in that district. Some of my key responsibilities as an assemblyman include I'm the chairman of the Regulated Professions Committee, which oversees just about any occupation in the state as far as rules and regulations and licensing. I'm a member of the Assembly Higher Education Committee as well as the Assembly Transportation Committee, which are all three of them collectively are very important committees as far as impacting the lives of people here in New Jersey, especially in the 34th legislative district.
So, and that's great because you've been legislating for a long time, and so you're like, this is another election, this is another campaign. One thing someone said about you is that no matter what the event is, you are for Assemblyman Giblin, you were always there. They said
Always there.
That you're like you have been doing this for so many years, and you don't take things for granted. Is that something that you pride yourself in?
Well, it's basically your responsibility as a legislature, and I know Britnee Timberlake feels the same way. You got to go out and meet the people. My district, Essex County, the state, is very diverse, and you got to have your ear to the ground. Listen to senior citizens, listen to young people. You got to listen to people with families, and really try to get into what's on their mind. And constituent service is an important element of being a successful legislator or office holder, because people call you, have issues that are paramount to them, and they're looking for somebody to try to navigate them through that effort.
Now, what are some of these other issues? And of course, feel free to jump in and to also say things that you want to get out there, because again, like we tell every politician who comes on here, this is a forum for you. Yeah. But there's a lot of people that you listen to. You are legislators, or at least two of you are legislators. What are the things that you can talk about that you've either worked on that change people's lives, or that you will want to work on in the next terms?
So I'll answer that question. Like I mentioned, we did the $15 an hour minimum wage. We also got an independent investigation in the event that someone loses their life during interaction with law enforcement. And we know that is so incredibly important for our people, because, Dr. King, who we all idolize, and if you don't, then that's a problem too. But he had three main missions for equal rights in voting, economic equality through the Poor People's Campaign, and to end police brutality. And getting that bill across the finish line was monumental, actually, nationwide. And we were able to do that.
Why was it monumental nationwide?
Because it was monumental nationwide because many places have tried to do it. Not many places have been able to succeed. And we succeeded in getting a governor's signature and that a piece of legislation signed into law, so that we know that the issues in our communities will be treated in a balanced way. And it was not anti-police officer. We support our police officers. Many of us, like me, have family members who are police officers. Right. But what it is saying to that mother whose child has unfortunately lost their life, that there will be an independent investigation carried through, and for someone not to have doubts about that process. And
you're saying that it will occur anytime someone dies in police custody or by the hands of the police? That's correct, and it has to be transferred outside of the county in which it happened. So, like, we're talking about, there's a recent incident that I just read about a police officer who's being indicted in Newark for shooting two people in a moving car. How would that case have been dealt with the legislation that case has to currently be dealt with, because the legislation did get passed by an independent investigation. So it has to go to the Attorney General's office and be handled independently from Essex County. So is that what's going on now? Like, are the prosecutor who brought the charges, is that part of that law, or is there something else that's going to kick in? No. It's all the law is in effect. Okay.
And out of respect for people's family members and things, I won't comment on a pending case other than sending, condolences, of course.
Okay.
But that is something that, because we did that, now it's in effect, and that right there is something that is imperative to our people. So what I'm talking about doing is
So it's
real
already.
things.
So when we're reading this in the news, the way that's being handled, it's being handled under current law that was passed just a few months ago.
This is correct.
Okay.
This is correct. And that right there is being for the people. If you're really for the people, you're going to fight for legislation that will address long-term societal issues that we've had. You can't just complain about things. You got to be able to know how to work together to get it done. And Assemblyman Giblin and I work so well together to get it done and to get it across the finish line. We can't just have people, with megaphones hollering and screaming about the issues without coming up with the solutions. Our community has waited too long. The other thing that we've been able to get done is restoration for the Housing Trust Fund. I heard some talk earlier about people being displaced and development and things. Well, the Housing Trust Fund is actually something that developers can pull from to include affordability in their projects. A lot of people don't really understand.
Can you explain that? Because I don't understand that.
Uh-huh.
So what does that mean?
That means that a lot of people don't realize that most people who make a family of four that makes under about $70,000 a year could qualify. And while development is happening all around us, and we want it, like look at Newark with the Whole Foods coming and how great that is, right? But we have to make sure that we're also preserving affordability. And the Housing Trust Fund has funds there so that when developers are building and they're building residential units, that a portion of them, they have the money to be able to offset the cost and create housing so that New Jerseyans can really afford to stay in New Jersey. This, again, is another monumental thing that we've been able to work on.
And this is a law that's been passed that already, right now, so if there's development going on in your community, there's a trust fund that developers can use to make that housing more affordable.
It's a state housing trust fund, and unfortunately, under the previous administration, Governor Chris Christie, there was no money for it, and we fought for restoration in the process. Part of this is also knowing and understanding the process, and knowing that...
You've emphasized that. You've said that twice.
Yeah. Well, I wonder why I said that twice.
Okay.
If you don't know the process, you can't help the people. And that's just the main thing. You have to know the process. And we've been able to do that and to navigate well. Some things that I'm currently working on include making sure that we're able to retain our community wealth through a community wealth preservation program. And try to cut down on the foreclosure crisis, which is really bleeding the wealth out of communities, and particularly communities of color.
So, and that last thing that you talked about, is that the trust fund, or are you talking about a different policy?
Completely different. What I'm
Okay,
telling
so this
you
is more legislation.
We're working.
So this is more legislation. So
We're working.
You just mentioned, okay, so you mentioned minimum wage, you mentioned the Housing Trust Fund, and now you're mentioning...
And now I'm mentioning something that I have and we're working on. We're looking to pass that bill this year that will keep the wealth from being lost in our communities due to the foreclosure crisis. We know, especially as peoples of color, that our wealth is directly tied to our properties. And when our properties are foreclosed on and outside investors capture it, they're actually capturing our wealth. And this bill addresses that. So this is all for the people. And I do want to say, you mentioned, we're doing so much with legislation. I want to kind of just digress and address something that was said earlier, because I've only been there for a year, and I'm so grateful to Assemblyman Giblin for mentoring me, who's mentored me since I was an undergraduate at Seton Hall. In that year time...
so you're saying that, like, Assemblyman Giblin, you made it clear that you've been in office for a very long time in different offices, and you're saying that there's been mentorship that's gone on. What is
right.
So you could talk to us about that as you're making the other point as well.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, so that's right. I believe in mentorship, and I'm grateful for it, because when somebody is sharing their wisdom with you, you ought to listen. And this is a gentleman who has been doing this for a long time and has always been doing it for the people. He's a union leader and a union fighter, and we need to send him back. But so in that year time, I've only been there for a year, and I just told you about all these pieces of the legislation that we're working on for the community, right? But I also had the opportunity to give birth within that same time frame.
You told us you were a new mother as well.
That's right. And I want to address something that was mentioned about women and the Essex County Democratic Party. My chairman Chairman Leroy Jones, who is the chairman of the Essex County
Oh, so
Democrat Party.
you heard the shots
I
fired.
sure did, but shots fired back. Because let me tell you something, you don't get any more feminist than sending a young millennial woman down, 9 months pregnant, carrying a child, to be sworn into the New Jersey State Assembly. And for that, you know, I need a bomb to drop or something on the radio, you know? Come on, DJ. Because that's,
so you're like,
what more do you want? What more do you want?
So you're
And by the way, always make sure that there's diverse representation. You know, Juan Rivera here is sitting here as a Latino male. You know, diversity represented across the board. You see diversity in this very room. You have a Latino, you have an African American, and you have an Irish male. Like, this is diversity, and that we represent New Jersey.
All right, so we have a caller on the line. We have Deborah on the line. Would you like to take the question?
Yes, I'd like to direct a question to Mr. Juan Rivera, who's running for county register.
Okay, so yes.
He expressed that the records for the deeds and mortgages is not online, and I just pulled it up online. So I'm asking that question. How can he say that it's not accessible online? And also, what is his political history? Like, what is his political experience?
All right, those are two excellent questions. So, is it online or not, or is it like, are the records for the mortgages and deeds, are they online already, or is there something that's there? So that's the question from the caller. All right, and thank you so much for calling.
And what is his political experience?
And what is your political experience?
Hi, Deborah. Thank you for calling. Thank you for your question. What I was saying earlier was when I was on the campaign trail, those were the questions that were asked to me, and those were the things that I would look into going into the registrar's office. Because what they didn't have access to, there isn't a system where you could pay online and receive those records when you go, because there's a fee that you have to pay when you go in.
Copies of them?
Yes.
Oh, so in other words, you're saying that you're going to get rid of the fee so
No,
that they,
I didn't say I was going to get rid of the fee.
okay.
What I'm saying is there's no system in place to be able to get those copies or retrieve access to that. Those are the questions that were asked to me.
Okay, so even though you can see certain things online, you really can't pay for what you need to. You can't conduct the business that you want to conduct online.
Right. Yes.
So that answers your first question. So the second question was, what is your political background?
Oh, well, that's interesting. I've been involved in politics, I would say, well, close to about 15 years with the Essex County Democratic Committee. I also served on the New York Public School Advisory Board from 2009 to 2012. I also
And
served...
what titles did you hold?
Well, I mean, and thank you for your questions. I'll ask the follow-ups, and we appreciate you, but he'll finish answering them.
So I, like I just mentioned, I served on the Newark Public School Advisory Board from 2009 to 2012. I was a freeholder as well, and I did 4 years as an Essex County Commissioner on the Board of Elections.
All right, so thank you so much, Deborah, for your call. Those were great questions, and we appreciate you at All Politics Are Local.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Those were great questions. So they asked about your political experience and also a more specific question about conducting business online. Is there anything else that you'd like to say in terms of as a response or as more that you'd like to add?
No, I just like to echo what Assemblywoman Britnee Timberlake just talked about, the diversity in Essex County. I think it holds true. I think Chairman Leroy Jones has done a fantastic job in putting a great team together and representing everyone within our county. So.
All right, so we are running out of toward the end of our time. We have really about a little less than a minute left. So we always ask these questions. We ask them. I know that you have been Britnee Timberlake, Assemblywoman. You have been on our show many times. Tom Giblin, I don't know if you've been on our show before.
No, this is my first time.
Okay. So I think that Mr. Rivera, I think that you have been. This is the first time you're on our show.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So, who is this is All Politics Are Local. It's America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. So, All right, so we have one more call that we are going to take, and for one more question. So the and let's see if we can get him on. Hello, Che. Hello, Che? Are you on? Hello, Che. Are you on now? Hello, Che. Are you on now? Okay, so we're just having a bit of an issue with the phones for this last question. So before, and I think that he's actually on the phone right now. So, Che, are you on? Are you on now? And I don't. Are you? All right, Che. Hello.
Good evening. How you doing, Mr. Riley? How are you?
This is Mr. Alston, or Jonathan, you can call me. So, what question do you have? Good, good.
Several questions.
Well, we don't have time for several questions, but you know, because we're all running out of time. So, what's your question that you have for people, and we can work from there.
All right. The question is to Mr. Giblin and to Ms. Timberlake. In the Assembly, there's a bill, Assembly Bill 1091, which establishes shared custody for parents, and we're wondering how long it would take on a legislative calendar for something like that to be brought to the floor so that families that are experiencing divorce and complex realities of parenting will have equal constitutional grounds for shared parenting time. And if they could just weigh in a little bit on improvements with the State Environmental Protection Agency.
I'm just going to ask for a little clarification on the question. So you're saying that there's a bill right now, or that you are suggesting that there should be a bill?
It's Assembly Bill 1091 for the Assembly, and then for the Senate, it's 273. It's a shared custody bill. It's just that, shared custody. And it would be a new day in New Jersey for the shared custody.
Because it would mandate that both parents have shared custody.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. So and you're asking just the time. Are you asking whether they support the bill as well?
Yeah, well, it was to ask Mr. Giblin, because he's had experience in this legislative space, where he stands on it and where Ms. Timberlake stands on it as well. I know that they've had issues that are serious to them, and possibly the environment is one of those additional things, and how we can enhance New Jersey's water system.
Well, let's okay. All right, cool. So let's deal with that first one first. So first, on that bill, where do you stand on it, and if it passed, how long would that take?
Well, first of all, I don't know who the sponsor of the legislation is. I don't know if our caller knows who it is. And I don't know where its status is right now as far as is it assigned to a certain committee. There's a lot of things that need to be worked out in terms of additional co-sponsors and really somebody to carry it, so to speak, to the speaker's desk where it could be considered by the entire assembly. It sounds like a reasonable bill, but sometimes even something like this with joint custody, you can put laws on the books, but the practicality of making sure that it's lived up to is sometimes easier said than done. It takes two mature adults who have responsibility for a child to work out any type of bumps in the road or any differences in terms of really making a effective upbringing for the child in question.
And Assemblywoman Timberlake?
Yes, I think the Assemblyman gave a great overview. It really does depend exactly where the bill is, and I do agree with what the Assemblyman said. I did also hear the second question. I just do want to say that we also have legislation to address environmental issues, and particularly around the space. There's some things that I'm working on around the space of abating lead and also asbestos. And we know that lead is also directly related to behavioral issues and special education and the need for that. And really the truth is that we have to make our environment safer. So we are also taking a look at and just stay tuned, because we have we're working with a lot of environmental organizations on putting forth the best bills to actually not just educate people about lead, but to abate it for people.
Well, I think that,
Get rid of it for people.
you know, in our particular area, 34th Legislative District and even Essex County, we're probably doing the best, in my opinion, among the counties in the state as far as being recipients of Green Acres money. I think people, all they have
That's
to do
true.
is drive around Essex County and they can see the difference. You know, Branchbrook Park, Ivy Hill Park, Independence Park, they're really in optimum shape. There's a lot of community centers in each of these facilities, and we've come a long way. Is it enough? We're doing the best we can in terms of increasing funding and really living up to a commitment to make New Jersey, with its reputation as the Garden State.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jim, for your questions. They are great questions. Thank you for listening to All Politics Are Local, and call back like every week. We appreciate you, man.
Have a good night.
All right, bye-bye. All right, so thank you. So we are out of time, but we have that one question that we gotta ask, and you can also add anything that you want to add in terms of like voting for you, what line, what number, all the other stuff, as you're answering this question. So, who is your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group?
As far as I'm concerned, it's Biggie.
Okay. And you mentioned you were from Newark. What part of Newark are you from?
I was from the West Ward. One thing that I think that you have to emphasize here to our listeners, this primary here in 2019 sets the stage for 2020. We know how important it is nationally to really make a difference. And we have the drive-up numbers here in Essex County to show what we're capable of doing, you know, in terms of make sure people in Congress and the White House that they're, you know, listening to us and are attentive to our needs, and especially young people. Voting in primaries is important because that's really tantamount a lot of times to who's going to be the candidate in the general election and subsequently be successful. So make sure that you vote on the upcoming primary day, the first Tuesday in June.
All right, so next.
Nas. I love Nas, and I'm just going to say that my campaign slogan is principles over politics. I'm on line A, Assembly. You're going to see Assemblyman Giblin, myself. You're going to see Juan, you're going to see Romaine Graham-Greer, and you're going to see down ballot candidates as well. And it's all on line A. I just want to stress, please get out and vote, because we really can't complain if we don't vote. And I think that we see what has happened on the national level. You know, for those people who didn't believe, you know, that their vote matters, I hope now that you see that it actually does matter. So I ask that you research me as well. Go to electtimberlake.com and check me out, check out the record that we're building together. And also, if there's anyone out there that wants to reach me or us, Assemblyman Giblin and I are very accessible. And if you have an idea for a bill, we work with people to get things done, because that's what it's about.
All right, so we have Juan Rivera.
Okay, my favorite rapper said, check out my melody, and I want to encourage everyone to go out there and vote line A, because we ain't no joke. So if you didn't get that, my favorite rapper is Rakim, being Rakim. And it's extremely important that we get out to vote to set the trend, just to echo what Assemblyman Giblin said, along with Assemblywoman Timberlake, to create that wave going into 2020. We got to build the momentum, and it's not something to take lightly or to take for granted. So again, June 4th, line A, vote.
So thank you so much to both of our assembly candidates, our assembly people, and current assembly people and candidates, and our candidate Juan Rivera for county registrar. Thank you so much for coming out to All Politics Are Local.
Thank you for having
and
me.
big hand out for coming in, because I agree. Every vote counts. Everyone should be voting in every election, because if you're not a part of the process, that is how things continue to get worse. So thank you so much, we are All Politics Are Local, America's number one politically hip hop radio talk show.